The taxi screeched to a halt outside the glass and chrome entrance of Metropolitan Airport. Tessa Morrison practically tumbled out of the vehicle before the driver had finished collecting his fare, her phone already pressed to her ear, her voice cutting through the morning air like a blade. "I don't care if traffic was backed up for miles, Derek. I needed you there 20 minutes ago." She didn't wait for a response. She never did. Tessa had exactly 48 minutes to get to her hotel, shower, change into her power suit, and arrive at the offices of Trent Industries with a presentation that could either save her company or bury it completely. She grabbed her luggage from the taxi trunk and scanned the departure area frantically. Nothing. No driver with her name on a placard. No recognizable face holding a sign. The car service had failed her. Of course they had. Everyone failed her. Her boss had failed her by refusing to invest in her marketing proposal. Her clients had failed her by choosing cheaper competitors. The universe, it seemed, had made a career out of disappointment. Then she spotted him. A man stood casually beside a pristine black Mercedes, hands shoved into the pockets of dark jeans, a fitted gray Henley clinging to his broad shoulders. He looked relaxed, almost bored, like he was simply waiting for someone to tell him what to do next. His dark hair was tousled, falling slightly across his forehead. He had the kind of face that would look equally comfortable in a boardroom or at a gas station. Unremarkable in its perfection, the sort of face people forget until they see it again. Tessa didn't hesitate. She didn't consider. She simply moved on instinct born from panic and desperation. Finally, she snapped, marching toward him with her luggage wheels clicking urgently against the concrete. "You're late. I told the service I needed someone here at 7. It's now 7:23. Do you understand what that means? It means I'm behind schedule. I'm always behind schedule, and I'm done with people who can't respect a simple time commitment." The man's eyes flickered with something, surprise, maybe, or amusement, but his expression remained calm, almost serene. He didn't speak. He simply stepped forward, his movements fluid and practiced, and took her luggage from her hands. His touch was gentle but confident, and within seconds, he'd opened the rear passenger door and was loading her bags into the trunk. Tessa climbed into the back seat, immediately checking her phone, recalculating everything, her fingers flying across her screen as she typed out desperate emails and text messages. She didn't notice the man watching her in the rearview mirror, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The drive through the city took 22 minutes. In that time, Tessa didn't stop talking. She complained about her unreliable staff, about clients who only cared about the bottom line and not about creativity or vision. She ranted about the economy, about how it was nearly impossible for small business owners to compete with massive corporations, about how society was rigged against people like her, ambitious, talented, but perpetually broke. "You know what the problem is?" she said, not really expecting an answer, just needing to vent. "It's people who don't take pride in their work. People who treat their jobs like a punishment instead of an opportunity. Like, you're driving a luxury vehicle, you work for a service that charges premium rates, and you show up late like it's nothing. That's the difference between people who stay poor and people who actually make it in this world. It's the details. It's showing up on time. It's caring when nobody's watching." The driver remained silent, his hands steady on the wheel, his eyes focused on the road ahead. Occasionally, Tessa caught a glimpse of his reflection in the mirror, and she could have sworn she saw the ghost of a smile there, like he was listening to her rant with the patience of someone hearing something important. The Grandview Hotel emerged before her like a beacon of salvation. It was elegant, expensive, and exactly the kind of place where she needed to conduct serious business. The driver smoothly pulled into the circular drive and came around to open her door. Tessa was already unbuckling her seatbelt, already reaching for the handle herself. "Thanks," she muttered, not looking at him. She was already mentally stepping into the shower, already visualizing her outfit for the pitch, already rehearsing her opening line. She grabbed her luggage from the trunk and turned back toward the hotel entrance. "Try to be on time next time. For everyone's sake." She didn't wait to see his response. She didn't even glance back as he slowly closed the trunk and watched her disappear through the hotel's revolving doors. Ethan Trent stood beside his Mercedes for a long moment after Tessa vanished inside, his expression thoughtful. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the tablet she'd left on the back seat. Her name was emblazoned across a file labeled Catalyst Marketing Solutions Pitch Deck. He opened it and flipped through her presentation, bold designs, innovative thinking, and a business model that showed genuine ambition. He smiled to himself and closed the tablet. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. The Catalyst marketing presentation is scheduled for 10 a.m. in conference room A. They don't know you'll be attending. Ethan had come to the airport alone that morning, a rare occurrence in his heavily scheduled life. He'd intended to meet with an investor privately, away from the usual circus of bodyguards and executives. When Tessa had approached him with such supreme confidence, so certain of her assumptions, he'd made a split-second decision to play along. He'd been curious, genuinely curious, about what an ordinary person would say to him if they didn't know exactly who he was. In a world where everyone kissed his ring and praised his every word, encounters like that were precious, rare, honest. What he hadn't expected was how that honesty would sting. The hours moved like a slow tide after that. Tessa arrived at her hotel room, where she spent 90 minutes in a controlled frenzy of preparation. She styled her hair into a sleek ponytail, applied makeup with the precision of someone going into battle, and slipped into her one truly exceptional suit. Navy blue, impeccably tailored, the kind of investment piece that had taken 3 months of saved paychecks. She stood in front of the mirror and practiced her pitch 17 times, her voice getting stronger with each repetition. By 9:50 a.m., she was standing in the lobby of Trent Industries, a towering structure of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the very clouds. The building felt hostile, she thought. It felt like the physical manifestation of corporate indifference. She took the elevator to the 42nd floor, her heart rate accelerating with each passing moment. The conference room was exactly what she expected, a long table of polished mahogany, expensive leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. She could see the tiny figures of people moving below, all of them insignificant, all of them struggling just like her. It was a view designed to make you feel small. It was working. 3 executives sat at the table when she entered. She recognized them from her research. Margaret Chun, Vice President of Marketing, David Walsh, Director of Strategic Initiatives, and behind them, standing by the window with his hands clasped behind his back, was a man in an exquisitely tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was now styled perfectly, falling precisely across his forehead. His expression was professional, controlled, and utterly unreadable. Tessa's breath caught in her throat. It took her exactly 3 seconds to recognize him. It took her another 3 seconds to fully comprehend what that recognition meant. Her skin flushed hot, then cold, then hot again. Her mouth went dry. The folder in her hands felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "Gentlemen," Margaret said, standing and gesturing toward an empty chair. "This is Tessa Morrison from Catalyst Marketing Solutions. Tessa, thank you for coming. We're looking forward to hearing your ideas." Tessa felt the weight of the man's eyes on her. The man in the suit, the man from the airport, the man who now stood at the head of the table with the bearing of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in any room. Ethan Trent, the actual, literal billionaire CEO of Trent Industries. The most influential businessman in the state. The man she had, not 3 hours ago, lectured about professionalism and work ethic while mistaking him for a hired driver. She wanted to disappear. She wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. She wanted to go back in time and make every different choice. But she didn't do any of those things. Instead, she sat down. She opened her folder with hands that barely trembled. And she began to speak. "Thank you for the opportunity," she started, and her voice was steadier than she had any right to expect. "I know what you're looking for. You're a company worth billions, with market reach in 40 countries and a product that's already established in consumer consciousness. You don't need a marketing firm that tells you what you already know. You need someone brave enough to tell you what you don't want to hear." She clicked to her first slide, a bold design that showed Trent Industries' current market position. "You're stagnating," she said simply. "Not in profit. Your quarterly earnings are strong. But in perception, in innovation, in cultural relevance. Your brand has become synonymous with corporate. And in a world where younger demographics increasingly view corporations as disconnected from the real problems people face, that's a death sentence." Margaret's eyebrows rose. David leaned back in his chair, his expression closing off. But Ethan simply watched, his dark eyes tracking every movement Tessa made, every word that left her mouth. My proposal involves a complete repositioning. Tessa continued, her confidence building as the words poured out. Not of your product, which is excellent, but of your narrative. Trent Industries should become synonymous with tangible change, with solutions to real problems, with a corporation that actually listens to its customers instead of lecturing them. She moved through her slides with increasing intensity, showing mock-ups of a new brand identity, projected financial models, and detailed rollout timelines. She talked about authenticity in an age of performative activism. She talked about the importance of human connection in business. She talked about how corporations had forgotten that their power came from people, not from stock portfolios or quarterly earnings reports. She spoke with a raw honesty that was unusual in formal business settings, the kind of honesty that made executives uncomfortable because it cut through all the carefully constructed professional facades. When she finished, the silence in the room was absolute. That's quite a presentation, Margaret finally said, her tone carefully neutral. Some of your observations are bold. Some of your observations are insulting, David added. But there was something in his voice that suggested he wasn't entirely dismissing her ideas, but not entirely off base. Ethan stood and walked slowly toward the window. The city spread out beneath them, millions of lives intersecting and overlapping in an endless pattern of ambition and struggle. He turned back to face the table, and when his eyes found Tessa's, there was something in them she hadn't seen before. Something like recognition. Something like respect. Miss Morrison, he said, his voice smooth and measured. You've accomplished something quite remarkable. You've told me exactly what I needed to hear, even though telling me was clearly terrifying. He stepped closer to the table. You know who I am now, obviously. What you might not know is that I spent this morning pretending to be something I'm not, specifically because I wanted to hear the truth. I'm tired of being surrounded by people who tell me what I want to hear. You gave me something more valuable than flattery. You gave me an honest critique delivered with conviction. He paused, and Tessa felt like she couldn't breathe. I'd like to continue this conversation, he said. But not right now. Not in this room. I want you to take a week off. Work on your proposal. Refine your thinking. Show me what you've really got. Come back to me with a revised version, and I promise you, you'll get my full attention. Tessa's hands were shaking as she gathered her materials. Really? She managed to say. Even after. I mean, I didn't know. That's precisely why this will work, Ethan said, and for the first time, she saw that slight smile again, the one that had played around his mouth during their drive. You didn't know who I was, and you treated me with exactly the respect I deserved, which is to say, the respect you'd show anyone. That's rare in my world. Don't waste it. She left the conference room in a daze. The elevator ride down felt like descending through layers of emotion. Humiliation mixed with disbelief mixed with an odd, electric hope. Her phone buzzed the moment she reached the lobby. An email from Trent Industries' HR department. A week-long contract for her to work on-site, fully funded, with access to all company resources and data she might need. The week that followed was the most intense period of Tessa's life. She arrived at Trent Industries at 6 a.m. and didn't leave until 10 p.m. She interviewed department heads and floor staff. She studied consumer data and market trends. She went back through every decision Trent Industries had made in the past 5 years and asked herself what narrative might have been different, what messaging might have resonated more deeply with customers. She didn't see Ethan during that time. Not once. But every morning, when she arrived at her temporary desk, there was a coffee waiting, black, no sugar, exactly how she'd mentioned it during the drive. And every evening, when she prepared to leave, there was a note with some kind of observation or question designed to push her thinking deeper. By the end of the week, her proposal was something entirely different from what she'd presented before. It was more refined, more strategic, and importantly, it was more human. It advocated for Trent Industries to become a company that didn't just talk about change, but actively participated in it. Not for the marketing value, but because it was the right thing to do. She made her presentation on a Friday afternoon. This time, Ethan sat at the table with the other executives, his expression unreadable. Tessa delivered her pitch with the confidence of someone who had spent an entire week immersed in both the company and her own potential. She showed market research. She showed projected returns. She showed exactly how Trent Industries could transition from a company perceived as disconnected to one perceived as genuinely invested in meaningful change. When she finished, The executives looked impressed. But it was Ethan's reaction that mattered. He stood up slowly and walked to where Tessa was standing. "You've grown," he said simply. "In 1 week, you've taken critique and transformed it into something better. That's exactly what I hoped you'd do." He extended his hand, and when she shook it, his grip was firm and genuine. Catalyst Marketing Solutions has just become a consulting firm for Trent Industries. Your proposal will be implemented immediately, but I also want to offer you a personal position as a consultant to my foundation. I have plans to create an initiative specifically designed to help emerging entrepreneurs overcome the systemic barriers they face. I think you understand those barriers better than most. Tessa felt tears prickling her eyes, but she forced them back. "Why are you doing this? I was rude to you. I was presumptuous." "Because," Ethan said, "you were honest. And because I believe in second chances. Especially when someone has the courage to admit their mistake and the drive to do better." He smiled then, fully, and it transformed his entire face. "Besides, someone recently told me that the difference between people who succeed and people who don't is the details, showing up on time, caring when nobody's watching." I decided to take that advice seriously. The next 6 months transformed everything. Tessa's company grew exponentially. The new direction she'd proposed for Trent Industries resonated powerfully with consumers. Her foundation work introduced her to dozens of entrepreneurs facing the same struggles she'd faced, and she became an advocate for systemic change in business. She worked directly with Ethan on several initiatives, and somewhere in the process, the professional relationship transformed into something more personal. It was a Tuesday afternoon when he asked her to dinner, at the same hotel where she'd stayed during that initial visit. They sat at a quiet table overlooking the city, and Ethan reached across and took her hand. "You know what I thought that first day, when you handed me your luggage?" he asked. "I thought, finally, someone who sees me as just another person. I didn't know at the time how rare that actually was, but I know now. And I didn't know how much I needed it." Tessa smiled. "I thought you were just a really patient driver." "I was," he said. "I was driving you toward your own success. I just didn't tell you where we were headed." 3 months later, Ethan picked Tessa up at the same airport where they'd first met. She'd been in meetings all day and was exhausted, her hair slightly disheveled, her energy depleted. When she saw the black Mercedes and Ethan leaning against it with that familiar smile, she laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like years. "Need a lift?" he asked, holding open the passenger door. Not the back seat where she'd sat during that first ride, but the front seat. The passenger seat. "Equal. Only if you promise you're actually a chauffeur this time and not secretly running a multi-billion-dollar corporation," she teased, climbing in beside him. They drove through the city as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ethan reached over and squeezed her hand. "I've been thinking about something," he said. "About what you told me that first day. You said that success comes from the details, from caring when nobody's watching. You were right. But what I've learned from you is that success also comes from allowing people to surprise you, from giving them a chance when they make a mistake, from believing that sometimes the greatest blessings arrive dressed as our most embarrassing moments." Tessa looked out at the city stretching endlessly before them. All those people down there, all of them writing their own stories, all of them facing their own moments of seeming failure. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Coming to the airport that day?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Not for a single second," he finally said. "The worst day of your life was the best day of mine. That's how you know something is real." They drove on in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, toward a future that neither of them could have predicted, but both of them desperately wanted. The city lights began to twinkle as darkness fell, each one a small beacon of hope in the night. Somewhere down there, another ambitious person was making a presentation. Somewhere, another small business owner was fighting to survive. Somewhere, another chance meeting was about to change everything. All it takes is one moment, one decision, one person brave enough to see past the obvious and into the potential beneath. That's the real story here. Not about a billionaire and a marketing consultant. It's about second chances and the transformative power of authenticity. It's about how life has a way of giving us exactly what we need, even when we don't know we need it. It's about embracing those uncomfortable moments when we realize we were wrong, because they're often the doorways to something extraordinary. If you're watching this, I want you to think about your own story. Think about the times you've been wrong about something or someone. Think about the moments when you wanted to disappear from embarrassment. Those aren't your failures. Those are your starting points. Those are the places where growth becomes possible. How many times have you judged someone based on first impressions? How many opportunities have you missed because you were too proud to admit you were wrong? If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own assumptions and biases, then you absolutely need to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We have more stories coming that will challenge the way you think about success, relationships, and what it really means to live authentically. Drop a comment below and tell us, if you were in Tessa's position, would you have pushed through the humiliation? Would you have continued fighting for your dream? Or would you have walked away? Let's talk about it. Share this video with someone in your life who needs to hear that their biggest setbacks could be their greatest comebacks. Someone who's struggling right now and needs a reminder that embarrassment isn't the end of the story, it's just the beginning. Because that's what this story teaches us. Every mistake is just data. Every failure is just a chapter, not the entire book. The people who succeed aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who understand that the fall is sometimes exactly what you need to reach new heights. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that could change your perspective on life. We'll see you in the next video.